All right. So I love that. And the truth is that every woman, however young or old she is, God made us to beautify the world. God made us the ones who bring a sweetness, a tenderness, a comfort, a kindness that softens the world and beautifies the world. So to all the moms and all the young women and older women of every age, we celebrate you. If you want to just stand up, we want to clap for you. Guys, if you can clap. Clap for all the ladies who make our world so beautiful. So actually, ladies, stay standing up and we'll have the men just extend their hands. So hang on a second, ushers. Go ahead, any of you guys around the ladies, just go ahead, extend your hands out to the women, and we're just going to pray a blessing over the women. Pastor Justin, would you like to lead the prayer to bless the women?
Yeah, so I just say thank you, Father. I thank you for these amazing, beautiful women that stand here now in front of us. Thank you that we would never have the full understanding of who you are without these ladies. They represent half of the Godhead. They came from you, and they came from your concept of what life should be like, and without them, my goodness, we wouldn't even be alive, let's be honest with that one. And yet with them, everything changes. The world changes. Life is released in every way possible. Not only do they carry it inside of them, but they release it out of them. They release it out of every word that they say. They release it out of every action that they take. And so I say thank you for what you have gifted the world when you've gifted all of these women. Thank you, Papa.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, and moms, we want to make your life a little sweeter to all the ladies, however young or old here in the sanctuary, whether you're a spiritual mom or a natural mom. We've got a little gift of chocolate for you today to sweeten up your day. So thank you and happy Mother's Day.
Yay. Ooh. What a fabulous day. And I just really appreciate that poem that Hadassah shared at the beginning of service. If you didn't get it, you can come. If you didn't get to hear it, you can come and bug her. I know that she could have a way to get it to you, but it was just beautiful how it addressed so many different facets of being a mother, whether you are a physical mother or whether you are a spiritual mother or whether you are a mother-to-be or whether you're a mother that's gone through crisis and struggle. It's just amazing. It's a really, thank you, Hadassah, for sharing that. Wow.
Oh, tell them about the healing on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got news on Facebook that somebody's right ankle got healed on Facebook, so that was super fun. I'm like, come on. So we'll be expecting baby testimonies. That's right. I'll tell you, that's church growth right there. Wow. Justin, I'm like, it's funny how we have a man talking about mothers. It's good. It's really good because it gives the mothers a day off. And I totally agree with all that was said. It's like and I'm going to share this actually. I'm going to pray first over myself before I start here. Yeah, join me. Thank you. Everyone just reach your hands out to me right now. That was a joke. It was like well, I'll take it. I'm not going to say no. So, Father, thank you. Thank you for what you want to do today. Thank you for how you want to represent this truth, Lord. Women have been overlooked for too long, and the significant role that they play in the movement of everything, Lord, and especially here in church culture. And so I just pray today that more value will be added to each one of the women's lives in this room right now. And I pray that for us as men, that we would see it as well, because not only do the women have to know that they have that value, but they actually have to be valued as well. They have to be valued. And so I just pray that as we go through this time today, that value would increase across the board in this room, in men and in women, and that we would walk out of here just excited to know that we get to do this and see this aspect of who you are. In your name, amen. Oh, moms and moms-to-be and spiritual moms, every kind of mom that's in here right now. Whether you know it or not, if you were born female, you were born a mother. whether you ever have children or not, just to clarify. Like, it's that significant, that's important. You carry it in your heart. You carry an aspect of who God is into every single realm you walk in, and that is super exciting. And I'm going to start in a different verse that I want to release over you guys, because I want to talk about the impact that mothers have in the lives of their children and how great it is, how significant it is, like so significant. And I want to talk about the concept of it from the place of where it begins in the womb. And begin to share things in regards to that. And this is going to sound like a very interesting starting point, but you're just going to have to bear with me here. In Malachi, what is it? This is the famous one, Malachi 4:6, where it talks about Jesus coming. And it says the spirit of Elijah. And it says that he will turn the hearts of the fathers towards the children. Sometimes you have to read between the lines. What you don't hear in the Bible, anywhere, is that he has to turn the hearts of the mothers towards the children. Isn't that interesting? And I want to explain to you why I think this is. And I'm gonna be using Mary as a big piece of this, but I believe that with women, you women carry something that I am super, like crazy jealous of. Us men will never know what it means to have a soul inside of us. I mean, like, wait, you're soulless? No, that's not what I mean. Don't interpret that wrong. What I mean is that we have our own soul, but we will never know what it means to have another soul inside of us. From the moment of conception inside of a woman, I fully believe that there is a bond that immediately begins to form with that life in ways that I will never know. To me, I cannot fathom this, having this life inside of you. Now, getting that soul out of you, not jealous, okay? Not jealous at all. But very jealous that you get to carry it inside of you, because that is very significant. And I believe that is a bond that men actually have to learn. They actually have to move towards it. And I want to explain it like this. When Jessica was pregnant with our 2 children, it was one of the most amazing times of my life ever, to this day. One of the most marked times of my life, because I would sit there and I would watch how she would swoon over this lump that began to grow and grow and grow. And I've told her this, and I think she's utterly gorgeous, like the most beautiful woman in the world. She takes my breath away still to this day. Yeah, no, it's totally true, but, I mean, that's your problem, Ted. But when she was pregnant, like, she glowed. She's like, I felt like throwing up all the time. I'm like, I know, but I've never, like, she's the most beautiful that I'd ever seen her in my life. And I couldn't get past it. I could sit there and stare at her and just watch her, and I'm like, she's just alive in a way that I cannot even fathom, that I can't even comprehend. And then when she had Judah and Eleanor, this was a very unique thing for me, because the moment that she had those babies, the drawing to her chest, I remember that when she was breastfeeding our children, I was like undone watching this. There was nothing sexual about it in any way, but I would look at her and I could see this bond, and I could see this soul connection that I realized in that moment, I don't have that with this child yet. I don't. And as I watched her movement with our children, I realized very clearly, I need to learn something from how she is moving with our kids. And what I believe why I believe this verse, Malachi, is aimed at the fathers is this. Fathers often have to learn what it means to take hold of the hearts of their children. And I fully believe, and I'm not saying that there's fathers that don't do that automatically and easily and quickly, but as a whole, you will watch a mother immediately bond with this child. Immediately and then that child is hers forever. It doesn't matter how, you guys know this, right? No matter how bad a kid gets, that's always that mama's boy or that mama's girl. Like, no matter they could do the worst things ever, that's still their kid, and they still love them like no one else will love them. And there's this movement into this heart being changed that us men, can only begin to experience as we watch mothers with their kids. as we watch our spouses or we watch even the women around us in their movement from the time they are conceived in the womb till the time that, in essence, the handoff starts happening in the teenage years. And so I want to use Mary as a way of moving through this, because as I began to walk through Mary's life, I was just, I was messed up in the best way possible. And one other thing too, ladies, I don't know if you know, before I jump into Mary, I don't know if you know how significant your role, your place is as a mom. Do you know that in countless cultures, also Native American cultures, Cherokee, in the Cherokee culture, your lineage wasn't traced through the father, your lineage was traced through the mom. And did you know that in Jewish culture, there was this crazy shift, and I think it's something prophetic, and I don't totally understand it yet, this crazy shift in how they tracked your lineage. You ever read the Old Testament, and you get to the parts, you're like, do you ever read the Old Testament? Anybody in here? Okay. Whatever. Never. When you get to those parts, and this is horrible in Bible college, like we had to read it word for word through the whole Bible, and there's certain points you hit where you're just like, you're going through like the son of Belial, the son of Jekiahim, the son of, and there's like pages of the son of, to the point where you're like, son of a gun. Like, I am done with son of whatever. And the really weird part is the only time you hear moms mentioned, this is really, really unusual, is when the son is either super, super horrible, like, and it's the son of this woman. You're like, what the, how come she's getting mentioned here? Or the son is excellent, like excellent. And suddenly the mother's name is mentioned. You don't see the mother's name mentioned very often throughout the Old Testament. And I don't understand that totally. I don't want to get into that. I'm just pointing that out. Go dig into it. If somebody has an answer, come and tell me. But
Highlighting their influence.
it's yes, I know that's the point. It's highlighting their influence. And the really funny thing is, when we get into the New Testament, you see a very dramatic shift. And the dramatic shift doesn't necessarily have to do with New Testament writers changing their mind, but in the culture, in the Jewish culture, and even unto this day, your lineage is tracked through your mom. Through your mom. And we see that because in the Gospels, the lineage, like these Gospels were written after Jesus died. So they were written, they have all kinds of dates on them. Some say it was like in the 50 AD, 70 AD, 90 AD, somewhere in that frame. But the really crazy part, if you look at the movement of the Jewish culture at that time, you can trace it to the 10 AD to 70 AD. There was a massive shift in how they tracked lineage. And it went solely through, not solely, I shouldn't say actually a clarification, it went through the mother's line. To this day, if you go to a Jewish synagogue, you will be, if you're Jewish, you will be tracked through your mom's line. If you go into the synagogue and you say, my dad was a Jew, my mom wasn't, they're going to say to you, okay, let's take you through the conversion process. If you come in and you say, my mom was a Jew, my dad wasn't, they'll say, welcome. Did you know that? Pretty wild. Yeah, so did I say that? I don't know if I clarified that. Thank God for wives. They make everything more beautiful. Like we saw. It's magic. This all began to happen in Jesus' time. Like Jesus, I'm like, is it a coincidence that when Jesus comes, there's this massive shift and suddenly it's no longer the son of Bob and the son of whoever, but it's like, oh yeah, that was the son of Mary that came through the son of Diane. That was this. It was a very massive shift in Jesus' time. And I think that there's a prophetic meaning on this. I'm not going to dig into that in particular. I want to dig more into attributes today. But I found that, I don't think it's coincidence. I just don't think it's coincidence. I think that there was a redemption that happened that shifted the whole movement of the church, of where God was going, where Jesus was going, and it brought women to a place of prominence and significance in a culture. And to this day, we're still pulling on that significance, like really pulling on it now. So, what I want to do first, and by the way, it's a really weird word. That whole tracing through your mom's side is called matrilineality. Yeah, go look it up. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Matrilineal. So first, what I want to do is, as we dig into the influence that a mother has, we're going to use Mary. So turn with me first to John 2, and we're going to read a story that is just so much fun. Actually, I'm going to read it out of the Passion. Yeah, go. I love the Passion because it takes words that we usually attribute, like, any men here ever gone and been like, have you ever gone to your mom and been like, woman? Talk to her like that? You're like, oh, sorry, Mom. What I meant was one that I love. Because when you see woman in the Bible, by the way, it's not in the sense that we would be like boldly and harshly talking to somebody. And I love how the Passion translator, Brian Simmons, translates it to make it clear. And so you'll see why I'm saying that in a moment, if I can get there. Got these little thin pages. Okay, chapter 2, verse 1. Now on the third day there was a wedding feast in the Galilean village of Cana, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples were all invited to the banquet, but with so many guests in attendance they ran out of wine. And when Mary realized it, she came to him and asked, "They have no wine. Can't you do something about it?" And Jesus replied to her, "My dear one." You see the difference? In a lot of your Bibles, you're going to see there, "Woman!" No, that's not what he was saying. He was saying, "My dear one." It was a term of endearment. "My dear one, don't you understand that if I do this, it won't change anything for you, but it will change everything for me? My hour of unveiling my power has not yet come." I love this translation of that section of Scripture. I love it. Mary then went to, so he just tells her no. Like, not now. This isn't the right time. And then Mary then went to the servers and told them, "Whatever Jesus tells you, make sure that you do it." I'm going to jump into that in a second. What I want to preface this by saying is one thing. I believe, first and foremost, that Mary did that because, first, we have no record of Jesus doing any miracles, signs, wonders, anything until that moment. You mothers carry the promises over your children. And whether you know it or not, those promises have way more sway than you can even imagine. They have way more power than you can even imagine. You carry the truths about each one of those children that you have, whether it is physical children that you have or whether it is spiritual children that have come into your life. You carry promises over them that will forever change them. And I want to say this, for any of you ladies out there that have kids and you're saying right now, I can't think of any promises over my kids, go ask him for some. It's that simple. Because I'll tell you, he loves giving promises over children. Loves, 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 because they are the arrows that point towards their destiny. And so with Mary, and because of time, I'm not going to go look up all these scriptures, but with Mary, we begin to see that she held on to promises before this point in Cana. We begin to see when the angels first come to her, when she's this little 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, somewhere in there, we don't know, virgin, little girl, an angel comes to her and says, "You're going to have the Son of God." Who? Picture trying to ponder that one. That's crazy, right? And she begins to ponder this in her heart. She takes it and she ponders it in her heart. And it says 3 times that she ponders things in her heart. The second time is she goes to see Elizabeth when she's about 6 months pregnant. And in that moment, Elizabeth begins to prophesy over her and speak things about this child in her womb. The angel spoke things about the child in her womb. Elizabeth begins to speak things about this child in her womb. And she holds on to those promises. It says that she pondered these things in her heart. What does that mean? She took these promises over this child to be, and she said, "I am literally going to sit on these. I'm going to believe in these. I'm going to pore over these. I'm going to speak them out again and again and again because this is the truth of who this kid is going to be. And I'm going to engage this child with those truths." And the crazy thing is we see it again in another moment, which is a really weird moment. Jesus is 12 years old. You guys know this story, right? This is a funny one. I'm like, I don't know if Mary and Joseph were bad parents or good parents right here. I don't know how this goes, but it was necessary one way or the other. They go to Jerusalem to make the trip, and then they leave Jerusalem to get back home with this big caravan that they're in. And back then you traveled in caravans because it was safe, because if you're traveling alone, you were very highly probable to get robbed, beaten, killed. It was common. Boy, don't we live in a nice age. And so they're traveling back, and apparently mom thought dad had Jesus, dad thought mom had Jesus, and 3 days later, they're like, where's Jesus? I'm like, I don't know if I've ever gone 3 days with like, oh, where's Judah and Ellie? Like, honey?
13, he would be a man, though.
Yeah, 13, he was a man, different culture, right? I'm like, technically they were driving at 13, so maybe it was a little different back then. And so they head back in there, and then they meet up with Jesus. They're a little ticked off, and they go through a little conversation. But Jesus says something about, he's about the Father's business. And it says after that Mary pondered it in her heart. Like she didn't just sit there and like brush it off like, hey, you about my business, boy. Get in line. We got to go home. But she began to ponder these things in her heart. Why? Because they were lining up with these promises that were over his life. And so we get to Cana of Galilee, or Cana, the wedding feast. And in this moment, we see something extraordinary happen. And moms, oh, moms. You're all moms, ladies. She has these promises, has yet to see them fulfilled over her son's life. And suddenly they're in this engagement with all of these people, with this wedding party. Jesus comes with these new disciples that he's got. They're out of wine, which is a huge dishonor to guests. It's like you go to these feasts, these wedding feasts, like by the way, another crazy thing, and I don't want to get into it because I'll probably get crucified for this. If they're out of wine, what does that mean is happening at that party? By the way, this is not, I think drunkenness is wrong. It very clearly says drunkenness is wrong in the Bible. But I'm also challenged to understand why Jesus would make wine for a bunch of drunk people. But he did. That'll mess with your head, mess with your theology. And I don't agree with drunkenness, completely against it. It's clear in the Bible, just to solidify that. But we also see Jesus hanging out with drunks and being called one because he did. Crazy stuff. Side note, sweep it away. So at this thing, Mary steps into this moment that is extraordinary. She has these promises, and in this place, she begins to address Jesus based on these promises. She believes that he can do a miracle. She doesn't know what this is going to look like, but because of what was spoken to her over her son, she believes that something can happen right now. And Jesus tells her, because, this is so fun. I'm trying to, the most poignant way to say this. In this moment, Jesus tells her, I can't do it. It's not my time yet. It's not time for my glory to be revealed. It's not time for the world to know me yet. And Jesus' mom is like, yeah, okay, but the servants are still going to do whatever you tell them to do. Like, right, Jesus. Get this. In that moment, God speaks to his son and says this, do what your mama told you. But get this. No, this is crazy. This is crazy. Mary just shifted the timeline of God. Do you get this? She believed so much in the promises over her child that she dragged it into the now, even though God said, this isn't the time. Ladies, do you get this? Do you hear what I'm saying about the significant role that you play in the lives of the children that are sitting around you, of the children in your lives? She changed the timeline of history forever because she believed in the promises over her son. That's nuts. Do you guys have influence? Wow, that was a weak response. It wasn't rhetorical. Do you ladies have influence? I cannot tell you how powerful your prayers are. She held on to these promises for 30 years, believing and waiting. I don't know if she spoke them out over Jesus again and again. I believe she did. I believe that again and again she spoke out things over his life that continued to push him towards his destiny, push him towards the truth of who he is. I highly disbelieve this concept that Jesus was just alone in it. He's God, he's got this all figured out from the time he's in his diapers. I really believe that God wanted him to go through the process with mom and dad and to know what it was like. And then to realize, what was that? Why did we let? Oh, yeah. I didn't even catch that. Okay, so where am I going with this, right? You might already understand where I'm going with this. I got to take a look here. So, I'm going to settle on two more things. One, like, whether you realize it or not, moms, what you say is so important. What you do is so important. And if you're a mother in here right now where you feel like, man, I made some bad choices, man, I made some mistakes, man, I shouldn't have done it this way or that way, welcome to parenting. If any parent in here can raise their hand and say they did it perfect, I will kick you out of the church. I'm like, ooh, he's a mean pastor. Only sometimes. But the reality is, you can't beat yourself up. If you're a mother in this place and you feel that right now, I am telling you there is grace. And there is grace in this room right now to become what you believe and what you see. Like, I want to be that mom. If you feel that inside of you, that's because God's here to do that inside of you. First and foremost. So no condemnation in this place. God always says it's a new day, new mercies, new beginnings. And he's saying in these moments right now, I will give you grace to be what you could never have been before. You want to be an awesome mom? Step into my chambers, and I'm going to give you what you couldn't get anywhere else. You can't buy this. Just come and be with me. So I'm just encouraging you ladies, no condemnation. And the other encouragement in this, God redeems everything. There is not a child that is represented in this room right now that is not redeemable. He loves that kid more than you, but I promise you this, he wants to use you to get that kid back. Okay? He wants you to become tangible love. And if you feel like I've broken too much, I've made too many mistakes, you watch what my God can do. I'm telling you, my grandmother and my father was abandoned at the age of 6. His mother took the other 3 kids and headed down to Tennessee and left him because she hated his guts because he was so much like his dad, who abandoned the family. And she left him with his great-grandmother to raise him. At the age of 12, he gets a tattoo. Headed down a good road, right? Stealing cars, doing drugs, Grand Theft Auto. You guys have heard the story multiple times. And then there's this grandma. There's this mother that she says, no. She says, my daughter and my granddaughter made some huge mistakes, and she could probably sit there and say, because of me, because of how I raised these kids. And she could sit there and beat herself up all day, but she didn't. You know what she did? She began to pray for that little boy that was 6 years old that would listen to nobody. She began to pray for that 12-year-old that was doing drugs and running around breaking laws. She began to pray for that 15-year-old that got caught with cars all over Rochester. He would just steal them and park them wherever he wanted so that he could drive them later, back when people would leave their keys in their cars. I'm like, gone are those days. And if that's you... And she began to pray for that kid at 17 that had to go before the judge. And the judge was saying, prison? Federal prison? And that's what the judge was saying. Like, this is what you're going to look to. And that great-grandmother of his prayed and prayed and prayed. And the prayers of that great-grandmother changed the course of my father's life and changed the course of my life. And his grandchildren. That judge on that day goes to my father and says, I'm going to do something I've never done before. You deserve to go to prison. I'm going to give you the option of going into the armed forces. Because I'm afraid that if you go to prison, you're going to be destroyed. And my dad's like, I'll take it. And from that point forward, he met Jesus in the armed forces. And my great-great-grandmother's prayers were answered. She brought my father into his destiny. So there's no kid in this room that's beyond redemption. None. My parents were so flippin' screwed up. And you wouldn't know when you meet them today. You wouldn't have a clue. And I never experienced anything that they experienced because of the prayers of a great-great-grandmother. Ugh. So, note, I don't care what you're feeling, I don't care what you're going through right now, God is speaking to you, there's redemption. So I want to finish this. Woo, we're almost there. It's one of those awesome days. Oh, that's a huge point. Yes, massive point. So for all you mothers out there wanting redemption with your kids and feeling like you made mistakes, that my great-great-grandmother's prayers ended up creating a place where my dad, when I was about 20 years after, so I don't know what that was. That was a long time. Like, when I was around 20 years old, him and his mother were restored, and his mother accepted Jesus and began to lead a Christian life, and two of his siblings accepted Jesus because of a great-grandmother's prayers. That she said, even if I made mistakes, I'm not going to let the devil take my family. This is so possible. Ooh, I'm so fortunate. I love my family. And my mom has a very similar story of God's redemption, but we don't have time to go into that. So what the point is this, the massive point that I'm trying to get to is this. I want to go back to Mary. Mary carried the promises over her son, and I believe her other children, because it's clear that Jesus had other brothers and sisters. And her faith created a place where Jesus actually walked into his destiny ahead of time. Her prayers, her belief in those promises changed Jesus' course, his history. As God said, because it's crazy, God will honor faith. We see it all over the Bible where God changes his mind, where somebody comes in faith and they're like, I'm asking you for this. And God's like, I said no, but you know what? Because of your faith, I'm going to change history right now. Ladies, you have that power inside of you. And one other note that I want to make about the significance of Mary. Oh, and as a side note, because we're almost at closing here, in 2 Timothy 1:5, we see another picture of powerful women in the Bible. You know Timothy, right? Who actually raised up Timothy to be this world changer? His grandmother and his mother. They're the ones that got promises over their Timothy, and they began to pray them out. And Paul addresses the fact that Timothy's lineage is so powerful because of his mother and his grandmother. That's just huge. It's so exciting. The other piece, and I'm going to share two things and we're going to close with this. In John 19:26, Jesus is on the cross. And I think this is a really interesting moment because how I have always seen it, not necessarily we, is that Jesus is on the cross. Nobody has followed Jesus to the cross except for his disciple John and a handful of women. And we find that one of those women is his mother. And I believe that Mary followed him to the cross because she was a very clear representation of God. Because I believe that God, in 2 Chronicles 16:9, it says that he searches to and fro throughout the earth for a heart that is wholly his. And when he was searching throughout the earth, he saw this little girl, 13, 14, whatever age she was. And he saw this pure heart and he said, she will represent me well. To her, I'm going to give my son. She will represent me well. To her, I'm going to give my son. She will represent me. How do we see this picture? We see this picture because we know that God will go to no end. There's nothing that will stop him from getting to us. There's nothing that will push him away from us, even in our biggest broken moments. We hear this concept of David saying, though I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. We hear this concept that even in the midst of our sin, his love burned for us, and that he wouldn't leave us and he wouldn't forsake us. And what do we see with Mary at the cross? We see this very clear picture of God. I'm not going to leave my son. I'm not going to leave my son.
She had to sit there at the foot of the cross with the blood of her son dripping down it. I cannot fathom that. I cannot fathom that. That is every parent's worst nightmare. And she says, I will not leave his side. Though it cost me my life, though it cost me everything, I'm not going to leave my son. She represented God in the clearest way possible. And when it came to the point where Jesus is about to die, and he says, and we take this in a really unusual way, he says to John, son, your mother, and he says to Mary, mother, your son, we look at it as, oh, he's taking care of his mom. I believe that's partially it, but the bigger part that I see is this. He knew that woman. And he knew the crazy place of faith, the crazy place of blessing he walked in because of his mother. He saw her change history because of what she carried. He saw this powerhouse. He knew why God chose that woman for his mother. And he saw one of the clearest examples of God on earth when he looked at his mom. And he says to John, I'm about to bless your house for the rest of your life. John, my mom. John, the biggest blessing that I have ever known. She's yours now because I gotta go. That's how I see that moment on the cross. A son forever changed by his mom. A mother that pulled her son's destiny into the here and the now. Even before its time. That's crazy. Ladies, you are extraordinary. And I believe that one of the ways that us men become the ones whose hearts are turned toward their children is because we marry these women and we begin to watch how they interact from the time they conceive until the time where children, this is all natural, where around the teenage years, the children begin to gravitate towards dad. And in that place, it's almost like we need that time, us men, to be like, okay, I'm ready. That's a generalization, okay? But we get to watch mom do what only mom can do. And in that place, we actually learn what it means to see God, to see him moving in our midst. I have learned more about God through my wife and her movement with my children than anything else in my life. And I've learned more about my own mother because I've watched her. I didn't understand mothers. As a son, you're like, yeah, my mom's awesome, whatever. But then suddenly you realize what it takes for your mother to create this amazing human being as you watch your wife do this thing. It's insane. It's awesome. And then you're like, I could do it. I think I could do it. I could do it. I could do it. Thank you for teaching me, honey. I got this. You do it together. Don't get me wrong. There's always together. But you ladies are amazing. Thank you for representing God. Thank you for being that clear picture for us men as we move forward. I love you guys. So why don't you guys stand up? Everybody lay a hand on the ladies around you. We're gonna just bless them. Any woman in this house, she's got to have a hand laid on her. If you see somebody without a hand on them, grab them, drag them near you. Everybody got a hand on them? Everybody got a hand? Almost everybody? I'm going to go find people if I see somebody without a hand on them. I'm just trekking through the church. Okay. Yeah. Father, oh, thank you for these amazing women. Thank you. Again, like I shared before, we could not do or represent who you are without them. And we say thank you for the incredible, incredible gift that they bring into our lives. Oh my goodness. And we just pray right now a tremendous blessing on each and every single one of them. That they would know how valuable they are. That they would know how valuable they are. Fill them up with that truth. And us men, that we would see this value in front of us every day. That we would watch, that we would learn, that we would grow. As we both learn from each other, I'm not disregarding that. We both get to learn from each other, but us men get to watch how a woman stewards that life inside of her, how she stewards that newborn, how she stewards those kids as they grow. and we change because of it. Bless these women. Bless their health. Bless their bodies. Bless their minds. Bless their finances. Bless their families. We release redemption in every way to every son and daughter that you're going to bring back. And we release that place of hope in every woman right now that feels broken because of past choices. That hope that says you're about to become what you could have never been before because His grace is here. And He will redeem. Thank you, Papa. Bless them in your precious name. Happy Mother's Day, ladies. Happy Mother's Day. I love you guys. There's prayer up front for any ladies. Give a lady a hug. Tell them how awesome they are. And have an awesome Mother's Day.